What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, where for today's video, boy have I got one stacked discussion for you guys, because Hasbro just delivered what may be one of their best Transformers fan streams in a long time, serving to both Studio Series and Legacy United fans. So to begin with, let's get stuck into my bread and butter, the Transformers Studio Series reveals. The first figure they dropped was the Studio Series 86 Core Class Steeljaw. Now I can't lie to you guys, it is pretty sweet to finally see some of Blaster's minions make it into the main line after Soundwaves have been dominating for the best part of 5 years, and when it does come around to the beast mode, for the most part I think it looks decent. I'm really digging the integration of the back wings and those massive guns kind of slapped into the back legs. This guy will also be able to transform into a full-blown cassette, which is compatible with either the Kingdom or the Studio Series Blaster. Despite that though, I think it's really cool from a design perspective how they were able to take some of the cassette mode pieces to make the Lion main. That is really cool. I do have a few issues though, one of which would be how stubby the legs are. Now considering the scale and considering that this is only a core class, I imagine that this would be an issue which maybe they wouldn't really be able to get around. But when you check out the awesome ferocious image which we have slapped on the box, they appear to be way longer, so that is a bit of a shame. And the second issue which I have would be the price point. So considering this guy is officially a core class, he will retail for around about $10 to $12. Now when you see him stacked up against the actual Studio Series Blaster, he appears to be tiny, to the point where I definitely think they could have included him in as an additional accessory, especially as Studio Series Blaster was like the 4th or 5th reissue that we saw from that mold. So much like some of the Transformers Siege Micromaster sets, I would imagine that maybe he would be able to pass as being in a 2-pack, maybe with a repainted / retooled version of Ramhorn. So the price versus what you get ain't too great with this one, but the way Hasbro have kind of gone about justifying the price point would again be to include some additional accessories, but this time for Studio Series Blaster. So first up we see the return of unfortunately only one of those amazing golden speakers which Blaster did whack out to fend off against Soundwave. Now this was an accessory which also I would have loved to have seen included with that Studio Series Blaster, but there is no denying that the integration looks sweet. Now unfortunately we do only see one. I imagine that in order to get a second one you will either have to double dip on this Steeljaw release, or maybe wait for the upcoming 3-pack which is set to be released sometime next year. That is rumoured to include a Studio Series Perceptor, a Ramhorn and a Rat Bat, so you will then finally be able to recreate that amazing no way 2 can play scene, and I'm hoping that that is the 3-pack where they can kind of slip us in a second one of these awesome golden speakers. But if the past sales of both Rumble and Frenzy were anything to go by, this thing is literally going to fly off shelves. So if you are like myself and you are hesitant about the price point, if you don't want to miss out on this one, unfortunately I think we are all just going to have to jump on it, because there is a possibility that this thing could be flying off shelves like there is no damn tomorrow. Next up, tearing our way onto the battlefield, we have a Deluxe class release, this time being the War for Cybertron Gamer Edition Decepticon Soldier. To see that it is a retool of Barricade, I can't lie to you guys, this turned out so much better than I was expecting. So it appears to be kind of a 50-50 split when it comes to new pieces and old pieces. The torso I believe is directly carried over from Barricade, although the shoulders and the backpack, maybe the forearms, appear to be a brand new sculpt, at least when it comes to the upper half, and for the most part I think it looks decent. The lower half though is where I have some big issues. Unfortunately, much like Barricade, there is a shit ton of kibble just hanging off the back of the legs. He's also packing these massive gaping holes which I think look awful, especially for a modern day Deluxe release. One thing though which is a big improvement would be that he is no longer packing those massive flippers that we saw from Barricade. Now when it does come around to the vehicle mode, much like most of the War for Cybertron figures, this absolutely slaps. When it comes to design and detail, I think it looks excellent. The only issue which I really have with it would be kind of that grey plastic. It does look super bland and boring. You know, maybe this would have looked better had they decided to go for a slightly more black and purple colour scheme. But again, that is a potential repaint which I imagine we could see in the future. And another thing which I do think is kind of lazy would be that the accessory is exactly the same as the Gamer Edition Barricades. Now considering in the game you go through so many different weapons, I think it would have been awesome if every single Gamer Edition figure came with their own distinct firearms. But nevertheless, this definitely has turned out way better than I was expecting, even if it is a retool of what has to be one of the weakest Studio Series figures to date. Flying our way into the Voyager release of the wave, this release will be a Bumblebee movie Skywarp. Now we knew this guy was coming, we've already seen Thrust, Thundercracker and Starscream, so it was really only a matter of time that we saw this guy, and he was a character that did actually show up in the Bumblebee movie, and I believe the only actual on-screen one left to go, so I think it looks okay. I will say that I was expecting there to be way more purple when it comes to this guy's design. You know, the legs in particular are bare, they appear to be so bland and boring, and once we check out the Cybertronian Tetrajet mold, despite it being based on a pretty decent figure, again, the paint is definitely slacking. So despite it perhaps not being movie accurate, I wish for the sake of things maybe Hasbro could have sprinkled in a bit more metallic purple, because I definitely think it would have made some parts of this guy pop way better than they already are. But if you are like myself and you are an absolute sucker for that Bumblebee movie, then this really is one to collect, because I won't lie to you guys, some of the Seekers that we have seen from this film, I think for the most part have been absolute bangers. Springing our way into the leader class figure of this wave for Studio Series, we have the Triple Changer Studio Series 86 Springer. Now I can't lie to you guys, as mentioned in a past video, I have known for quite a while at least how the robot mode for this release was going to turn out, and I am a little underwhelmed because all it appears that they're doing is pretty much taking that amazing Transformers Siege Voyager Springer, retooling certain components. I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't even say that this is an extensive retool, and including a shed ton of additional accessories, some of which I don't even think most collectors are going to display with this guy. I mean, for example, they included the Wrecker's Hammer with this guy, despite it never actually appearing in the G1 show. So it really does seem to myself like this is a clear cash grab from Hasbro. They're just filling this guy out in order to justify that leader class price point. And judging by some of these images, if you're more than happy with the Transformers Siege Voyager Springer, then I really don't think there is any need at all to kind of jump on this release, because the differences, whilst are definitely better, I don't think are worth an additional $30 to $25. But when it does come to robot mode, they've swapped out the head, the chest unit, the shoulders, which I will say are a marked improvement in comparison to the original. They also appear to have retooled the upper tyres, some elements of the forearms, including a brand new flip-out blaster, which I did think was a pretty sweet touch. This guy will also include articulated hands, which can open and close, much like Earthrise Optimus Prime, and there's also a pretty sweet shot of him holding that massive shell, so that looks pretty sweet. They've also retooled the thighs, I believe, although from the shin downwards, this appears to be a direct carryover from the Transformers Siege version, and I won't lie to you guys, if the feet are as loose as that original version, then that will definitely be the make or break for me. When it comes around to the helicopter mode, to be honest, upon first glance, it really does just appear to be a repaint of the original Siege Springer, and that's because it mostly is. They appear to have only retooled the backpack. There may be some brand new elements going on when it comes to the front of this, but the entire rear end is identical to that previous Voyager version, and it appears as if though he will also include a brand new propeller piece, which when it comes to design, I do think looks slightly better in comparison to the swords that we saw with the Siege version. So overall, despite me liking what I see here in terms of some of the improvements, I really think that this is just a clear cash grab on Hasbro's part. They quite easily could have left out all of the additional accessories, maybe not have given us differences such as the articulated hands, and had maybe found a way to have repacked this guy as a Voyager release, because let's all face it, the transformation, the core engineering appears to be the same as what we did see from that Voyager version, which was only very recently reissued. I believe the last time we saw it was either in 2021 or maybe 2022 as part of the Wreck and Rule subline. So yeah, definitely a clear cash grab on Hasbro's part, and this is a figure which, much like Coronation Starscream, I would imagine would be shelf warming for quite a long time. Stinging our way back to Deluxe class, here we have once again another level A release. So this guy will be included in the same wave as the upcoming Transformers 1 Optimus Prime. This is pretty much going to be a subline of figures that will be available at retailers pretty much for 12 months. So we finally have the reveal for the Studio Series 86 Deluxe class Bumblebee, and I am a little underwhelmed, you know, considering how much of a banger some of the past Studio Series entries have been. I was expecting this to be hyper-toon accurate. Instead, this appears to be taking more inspiration from the original G1 Bumblebee toy, which I just was not expecting when it comes to a Studio Series release. You know, this is a line which prides itself on movie accuracy. I was thinking that considering Bumblebee is by far one of Hasbro's most popular characters, they would pull out the stops for this guy and obtain the license, much like we did see from the Netflix version. But to be fair, the vehicle mode doesn't look bad. I am a big fan of how they have kind of decided to go with a slightly more chibi look, but maybe I was expecting too much from this. You know, some of the past Studio Series figures have been borderline mini MP, so I was kind of expecting something very similar from this Bumblebee, and whilst it does appear to be a very solid release, I do just think when it comes to overall proportions is slightly off in comparison to what we did see in the original G1 show. Sketching his way into the comic edition subline though is by far one of the best reveals that I thought we saw from today's live stream, the leader class Decepticon Straxus. Now despite this being a heavy retool of the Kingdom Galvatron, I actually think this has turned out so much better than I was expecting. You know, the past two comic edition figures we saw, both Shockwave and Grimlock, for the most part were mere repaints with a few new cool accessories, whereas when it comes here to Straxus, this guy appears to be quite an extensive retool, especially when it comes to the torso, the arms and the brand new accessory. I think this guy looks awesome. I'm also really digging the color scheme. I think it's kind of cool how they've taken that Kingdom Galvatron and have really turned it into a Straxus. You know, the second you take a look at this guy, despite the legs for the most part being a direct reuse, I think the color scheme really makes this his own. You know, this guy looks solid. When it comes around to the vehicle mode, again, quite a few new pieces, especially when it comes to the front end. I'm also digging how the axe will be able to integrate into the tank mode, and as we check out kind of the treads, those look awesome. It's wicked to see how they too are also completely different in comparison to Kingdom Galvatron. So when it does come to that comic edition subline, despite both Grimlock and Shockwave packing a punch when it comes to repaints, I definitely think Straxus is where it's at. This is definitely the figure to jump on, and they also teased that there will be a 4th release when it comes to this comic edition line. So you guys be sure to let me know down below, what character would you guys love to see complete the collection for this year, and if Straxus is anything to go by, I imagine that once again it will be a complete wild card. Now we're going to turn to some of the Through the Space Bridge reveals, which I can't lie guys, some of the images they use for these pipeline reveals are by far the most revealing that we've seen since they launched this Through the Space Bridge segment, as I believe these are direct renders taken from the actual box art. So to begin with, we have the Core Class Energon Galvatron. So this will be a repaint of the pretty decent Energon Megatron. We all knew this guy was coming. We do see a pretty awesome render of him transformed into the jet mode, so I imagine from this you'll be able to kind of make out where these colours will end up once this bad boy is transformed into his robot mode. A reveal though which I was super let down by would be the next Rock Lord. Now unfortunately they never gave us an actual name for this character, but judging by the image this is going to be a pretty lazy repaint of Boulder Crash, and I think that sucks because with the exception of Magnius and Shard, all of the Rock Lords have been retools, which I think is a bit of a shame. But now we're going to get stuck into the meat and potatoes. So here we have some of the Deluxe class figures, and the first one is of a G1 Quake. Now it was mentioned that once again Takara Tomy solely led design on this one, and as I've mentioned previously, some of the Takara Tomy figures have absolutely slapped. I believe they solely worked on some of the Cybertron Legacy figures, which by far have to be some of the best updates. So again, super excited for this guy, and I would definitely recommend to check out the accessories he's holding, because I would imagine that he will also include 2 Target Masters. Soaring her way through the multiversal portal next, we have Slipstream. Now as many of us suspected, unfortunately this does appear to be a repaint / minor retool of the Legacy Windblade, which in its defense is a pretty decent figure, although I was expecting for them to maybe make this mold her own, although it does appear, judging by this render, that she will include 2 null cannons, so that is a different weapon in comparison to what we did see from Windblade. It also seems as if though she's going to have a brand new head sculpt, and of course be completely redecoed head to toe. But by far packing the biggest punch when it comes to some of these Wave 4 Deluxes would be the 4th and final reveal, that being G1 Optimus Prime, which I am so excited for. Now the design team and the marketer did go into a bit of detail as to what we can expect from this figure, so this will be kind of inspired by the original G1 Optimus Prime, in the sense that the colour scheme will be very similar, especially when it comes to kind of those iconic yellow retro eyes, so that's going to be pretty sweet. He will also include his Energon axe as well as the signature Ion Blaster, and this was designed by Mark, who 9 times out of 10 does a banging job when it comes to some of these updates. Gliding his way through the space bridge as the second to last Voyager from Legacy United Wave 4, we have a reissue / repaint of Metal Hawk. Now the second this image popped up on screen, I was super underwhelmed because I was thinking that maybe this would be a direct reissue of the Metal Hawk that we saw as part of Legacy Evolution, although the marketer did very briefly mention that this will be a repaint. There are going to be some slight differences between this release in comparison to the original release, and I'm really hoping that means that this time round he will be slightly more inspired by the original toy, in the sense that he will be a little more metallic when it comes to the color deco, and if that's the case, then this will be an easy cop. You know, if you check out my Metal Hawk review, one of the biggest issues I had with this guy was just how bland and boring the grey plastic and even the gold plastic was. So again, I am looking forward to seeing as to what they cook up. Mastering his way as one of the final Voyager mainline releases for this year, we have the Animated Universe Motormaster, which despite being officially confirmed as an extensive repaint of the amazing animated Optimus Prime, just by judging by this CG render, I think this is going to look badass. So as we expected, it will also include a brand new head sculpt, this time with Motormaster fully rocking a tash, so that's going to be pretty sweet, and the colour scheme appears to be solid. So really again, cannot wait to check this one out. You know, I can't lie to you guys, that animated Optimus Prime by far was one of the biggest highlights out of Legacy United for myself, so roll on the release here for Motormaster. Which leads us to Leader Class, the final two figures we can expect from Legacy United, and this is definitely where Hasbro have once again whacked out Operation Repaint. So first of all, we got confirmation that we will be seeing a Leader Class Soundwave, although unfortunately, much like some of the rumours we've been hearing, this will be a repack of the Netflix Soundwave, this time just including 3 additional cassette minions. Now considering that they're going to be charging roughly $55 for this, I think it absolutely stings that at the very least this wasn't a retool of the Netflix Soundwave. You know, I can't lie to you guys, whilst I do definitely think it is a banger when it comes to a Voyager class, not so much as a Leader class. There are still quite a few issues which I was really hoping that they would fix once it come around to this release, but judging by what the designers and the marketer mentioned, unfortunately it is just looking that at the very best this will be a slight repaint of the Netflix Soundwave, and I am left wondering if even the cassette minions are going to be brand new molds, or if these two are going to be reissues of some of the stuff that we saw from the Transformers Siege line, which then leads me on to the final figure which we can expect from Legacy United Wave 4, and to nobody's surprise, it is finally official confirmation that we are going to be seeing a Leader Class Armada Universe Galvatron. Now, we more or less know what this figure is going to look like, especially by checking out this actual CG render, but we technically already saw a reveal for this guy the second they revealed the Armada Universe Tidal Wave, as he was already slapped on the back of the box, so unfortunately nothing really new to talk about here. So those pretty much wrap up all of the reveals that Hasbro dropped today. I would love to get your guys' thoughts down below. Out of everything mentioned, what are you guys most excited for? I want to thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, transform and roll out!